that's kind of when the magic happened. Then everything began to shift and change. I began to see all kinds of very neat geometric patterns within my vision, whether my eyes were open or whether my eyes were closed. But the greatest feeling was just this overwhelming sense of love, an overwhelming sense of just interconnectedness with not only everyone in the room, but everything around me. So last night was our first ayahuasca ceremony, and first I want to preface that if you're watching this video in kind of looking at taking ayahuasca yourself and you're curious and are looking into other people's experiences, I just want to say that I've looked at a lot of different places over the last 5 years to come and take ayahuasca, and I am so glad that I made the decision to come to Paititi Institute. Roman and the core team here were absolutely amazing. The ceremony that they held last night was just totally incredible. They create such a support system for everyone here, and for my experience at least, the first several hours were actually very disappointing. I didn't feel anything within the first half an hour of us taking ayahuasca. Everyone was kind of purging and kind of going through their own thing, and I'm just sitting there like nothing. Was starting to think that like maybe I didn't get enough, or maybe grandmother ayahuasca just wasn't wanting to talk to me. And finally, after I think probably an hour and a half, maybe even almost 2 hours, Roman asked if anybody wanted to have personal healings. And so I opened up and said that I wanted a personal healing, and went up and talked with him, and he asked me how I was doing, and I said, well, I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm not really feeling anything. I feel like, grandma ayahuasca just doesn't want to talk to me. And so he first asked me if I had been drinking any water, which I said I hadn't drank any water, because at the beginning of the ceremony he said don't drink any water until after you've purged, because drinking water can actually make you purge sooner, which you want to keep it in your system for about a half an hour, and obviously I went longer than that. Then he kind of basically went through a process of helping me to open myself up more to the spirit of ayahuasca, and that's kind of when the magic happened. I started drinking some more water. That helped bring the ayahuasca further through my system, and then everything began to shift and change. I began to see all kinds of very neat geometric patterns within my vision, whether my eyes were open or whether my eyes were closed. But the greatest feeling was just this overwhelming sense of love, an overwhelming sense of just interconnectedness with not only everyone in the room, but everything around me. And I ended up getting up feeling like maybe I was kind of getting to the point of needing to purge, and I walked outside. I remember looking up at the sky and just being completely blown away by the sheer number of stars and the vastness of the stars in every single direction, touching every single mountain peak, and feeling like I was just a part of that. And just the overwhelming sensation of just joy and love, and feeling like this was it. This was everything that I came looking for. In the beginning of the day, when Roman was going through explaining the history and lineage of taking ayahuasca and how they facilitate things, it very much was something that you need to lose your expectations, because things are not going to go exactly how you hope they were going to go. And that was totally true. I was expecting to be confronted with a lot of the fears and anxieties and everything that I feel like has been holding me back through life, but instead I was very gently shown that a lot of the limitations that I feel I've had within life have all been self-inflicted. They've all been placed there by myself over the years, almost in a way of kind of limiting me from truly doing what I think I need to be doing But for the longest time, I was always placing the blame outside of myself, placing the blame on things that happened to me in my childhood, placing the blame on other people not doing things the way that I think they should be done. But instead, I was shown that it was all my own doing. And the feelings of anger and frustration towards people in my life when things weren't going the right way, it was totally just a mirror reflection of myself and what I was actually personally feeling. And I ended up forgiving a lot of people within my life that I felt had wronged me in certain ways. And just as total transparency, I grew up with a father who was an alcoholic, and a lot of times that turned into rage. And Roman talked about a process of remembering and trying to find what he called the anchor, and trying to find the earliest memory that was a positive memory. And yet most of my earliest memories are ones of my parents fighting and just kind of those drunken rages that ended up getting turned towards my mother, my sister, and I. And when I initially was going into the ceremony, I was thinking I was going to be confronted a lot with, issues with my dad. And yet, when I went up for my personal healing with Roman, he asked me, how my relationship was with my parents. And I said, with my mother, it's good, and with my father, it's okay. It's better than it used to be, but, there still are some things where we just kind of butt heads a little bit. And he said that Mama Ayahuasca was saying it was more something to do with my mother. And I didn't really understand what he meant by that until Mama Ayahuasca really took hold of me, and I realized that deep down I was holding a little bit of resentment towards my mother, in the feeling of why did she allow for us to stay in that situation for so long. And I ended up having to forgive her with the fact that, that happened and that we were in that situation for so long. But looking back, if it wasn't for going through all of those situations, I would not be the person that I am today. And I would not have a lot of the philosophies that I do now. Here in a couple of weeks, I'll celebrate 4 years of no alcohol for myself whatsoever, and it's kind of a multifaceted thing. I didn't want to have that be something that limited me, and it was also something that just no longer agreed with my system, so it was one of those things that I did have to give up. But I definitely think was one of the best decisions that I ever made, and that was totally relayed by my experience last night. And so once I went through that forgiveness process, I was really able to just sit with Mama Ayahuasca and continue to enjoy the visual effects that I had and listen to the wonderful music that Roman and the core team were creating, and just really sit in that sensation of love and compassion and joy. And I remember last night going to bed just with the greatest sensation of just that same love and joy and compassion, and with the biggest smile on my face. And I just couldn't make it go away. And I just really hope that this feeling of love and joy and compassion that I feel now is a permanent effect. I really hope that I can keep that within myself and apply that to the rest of my life, because I really feel that if we want to make this world a better place, we have to live lives full of joy, love, and compassion. And that's the only way. I just want to say how grateful again I feel for not only Roman and the core team here, but everybody else within the ceremony that held space for each other. And I also want to say how grateful I am for my wonderful wife, for taking care of my family and me for so long. And I didn't treat her the way that I should. And last night really made me understand that a lot of that was just my own self-infliction based upon wrongs and hurts that I was carrying from previous relationships, but yet I was applying to her even though she never did any of those wrongs. And I'm going to try my absolute best to make up for that fact. And, you know, here on the 1st of October, we'll celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary, and I hope that I can make the next 5 years so much more full of love and joy, and make her understand how grateful I am for everything that she has done for me, and allowing me to come down here and take this trip and stay at home and take care of our animals by herself and keep things running. And I'm so thankful for this experience to show me the wrongs that I have done in my life and how I can right those and kind of facilitate a better well-being. So that's kind of all I wanted to say about day one. Today is going to be a sharing circle, and then tomorrow will be a San Pedro ceremony, followed by another sharing circle, and then we'll go through some more learning techniques, and then we'll end the 10-day retreat with another ayahuasca ceremony, which I absolutely can't wait. So hope you enjoy. So yesterday we did our San Pedro ceremony. I remember telling myself, okay, Adam, you can do this. And then there was this thought of, but who is Adam and who is telling you that you can do this? The only thing that you can really rely on within life is that there's constant change.